You have never once watched anyone be disciplined. So when your system died on day 11, that wasn't a character flaw. You were trying to add a force that nobody has ever actually seen. What you've watched is only ever the absences, the drink not ordered, the alarm not argued with. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to give you 12 things a disciplined mind quietly refuses to do. 12 closed doors, not 12 new habits. And number 9 is the one that has ended every streak you've ever had. There's a 13th as well, unnumbered. You'll get that one at the end, because it only means anything once the other 12 are standing. Start with the person. Pick the most disciplined person you actually know, not a figure from a book, someone whose kitchen you've stood in. Now try to recall one moment where you watched them exert willpower. Try to recall a jaw set against something, a visible fight. You can't find it. What you remember instead is a list of things that didn't happen. They left the party at 10 while everyone else was ordering another round. They didn't take the bait when the meeting turned personal. Their phone stayed face down through an entire dinner. Their discipline was made out of negatives. That's why it never looked like work to you. You were watching for a presence, and the whole structure was built out of absence.
There is a word for this in chess, and it isn't a metaphor someone invented for a self-help book. Aaron Nimzowitsch called it prophylaxis, playing to prevent your opponent's plan before the plan exists. Club players lose by doing something. Strong players win by making certain things impossible. From the outside, those games look quiet. Almost nothing happens, and that is the entire achievement. So here is the reframe I want you to carry through all 12. A decision you make once is a decision. A decision you make every morning is a negotiation. And negotiations are expensive. You pay for them in attention, in mood, in the strange fatigue that arrives by 9 at night when you haven't done anything hard all day. A refusal that has been genuinely settled costs nothing to keep. There is no door to hold shut. Someone took it off the hinges years ago. Which means the question you've been asking has been wrong the whole time. Not what should I add to my day? What will I refuse, permanently, starting with 1. The first door opens at 6:12, in the dark. Number 1. A disciplined mind refuses to renegotiate a decision at the hour of execution. The room is dark, and the floor is 2 feet below you, and it is cold. The alarm goes, and a voice starts talking. And everyone gets the voice wrong. It isn't a lazy voice. It's a lawyer. It has prepared.
It presents evidence in a reasonable tone. You slept badly, which is true. Your shoulder is tight, which is also true. Tomorrow is genuinely a better day for this, and it might well be. Every individual sentence is accurate, and the argument they assemble is a lie. A disciplined mind does not win that argument. It declines to hold it. The rule was never get up. The rule is feet on the floor before the sentence finishes. You don't stay on the line for the lawyer's strongest point. You hang up while he's still being polite. The mechanism here is well documented. Peter Gollwitz's work on implementation intentions found that pre-committing to a specific if-then plan, when the alarm sounds, I stand up, attaches the response directly to the cue, so it fires without going to committee. Epictetus described the same gap 2,000 years earlier. The impression arrives uninvited, but the assent is yours. The lawyer gets to speak. He does not get a vote. Number 2. A disciplined mind refuses to wait for motivation, or clarity, or the right moment. Nobody in the history of cold water has ever felt ready for cold water. You get in, and then you are in, and the readiness turns up afterward, once you're already wet. There's a woman I'd like you to picture, because I suspect you already know her.
She wanted to write for 4 years, and spent those 4 years waiting to feel like a writer, waiting for the head to clear and the sentence to arrive fully formed on the walk home. Her rule now is 12 minutes at the desk with explicit written permission to write badly. Around minute 9, something usually starts. But the 12 minutes are not a trick for summoning the feeling. The 12 minutes are the job, and the feeling is a side effect that shows up when it shows up. This direction of travel is the whole basis of behavioral activation, one of the most robustly supported treatments for depression. Patients act first, and mood follows, instead of waiting for a motivation that has no intention of arriving on its own. Movement is upstream. Feeling is downstream. You have had it the other way round your entire adult life. Those two are the ones you expected. The next pair is where you'll want to argue with me, and it happens to be where most people actually lose. Number 3. The disciplined mind refuses to treat feelings as instructions. You notice you're cold, so you put on a coat. You do not cancel the day because you felt cold. The sensation was information. You acted on the information, and nobody had to have a crisis about it.
Now watch what happens when the sensation is unmotivated, or not in the mood, or off. Suddenly, the feeling gets promoted from information to verdict, and the day gets canceled on its authority. A disciplined mind demotes it back to what it was. A sharper version then. A paramedic in his first year, first bad call, and his hands are visibly shaking as he opens the bag. He discovers the thing nobody tells you in training. The shaking doesn't get a vote. The checklist drives. Airway, breathing, circulation. In that order, hands shaking or not. 12 years later, his hands still shake sometimes on the way in, and it has stopped meaning anything to him at all. It's weather. He works in it. This is the Stoic doctrine of assent, stated plainly by Epictetus. We are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about them, the impression being involuntary and the agreement being ours. The contemporary corroboration is James Gross's research on emotion regulation and cognitive reappraisal. The same physiological state can be labeled differently, and the label changes the behavior that follows. A racing heart before you speak can be read as fear, and it can be read as readiness. The body doesn't know which. You're the one holding the pen. Number 4. A disciplined mind refuses to punish itself for missing. He misses Tuesday's session.
Nothing dramatic. Work ran long, the traffic was bad. It happens. Then he spends Wednesday and Thursday in a private tribunal, prosecuting himself in his own voice, using words he'd never use about anyone else. Pathetic. All talk. Same as always. By Friday evening, the gym bag by the front door has become radioactive, and it has nothing to do with laziness. Looking at the bag means hearing the verdict again, so he stops looking at the bag. And that's how 3 days becomes 3 months. Now hear what a good coach would have said on Wednesday morning in 4 words. Fine. Wednesday, 20 minutes. There's no lecture in it and no assessment of his character. The next instruction delivered flat, and the thing is already over. Juliana Branis and Serena Chen found in 2012 that people prompted towards self-compassion after a failure were more motivated to improve and make amends than people given self-esteem boosts or simple distraction. Self-attack feels like rigor and functions as an exit. And it's worth noting that Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself constantly about returning to his principles, returning again and again as an ordinary movement, and never once made a performance out of the fall. If that sounded soft to you, stay with me, because the next refusal is the one that costs people years, and it usually happens at a dinner table. Number 5.
A disciplined mind refuses to announce. Dinner, 6 people, second bottle. He tells them about the marathon, the plan, the training block, the reasons behind it. Someone says, "That's amazing," and he feels it land. A small, warm settling in the chest, right in the middle of the ribs. Notice what just happened at that table. He got paid. The applause arrived before the work, and it arrived at exactly the address the work was supposed to be delivered to. Set that against a woman 8 months into a difficult rehabilitation program after a shoulder reconstruction, whose colleagues only find out because someone spots a physio card in her bag. Nobody clapped for 8 months. That is precisely why there were 8 months. Gallwitzer, Sheeran, Seifert, and Mikowski showed in 2009 that when people told others about identity-relevant goals, they subsequently put in less effort than those who kept the goal to themselves. The social recognition delivers a premature sense of completeness. Announcing converts a private debt into a public performance, and performances end. Number 6. A disciplined mind refuses to compare scoreboards with people whose constraints it cannot see. Picture 2 guitarists. The first has 3 hours every day, no children, and a room with foam on the walls.
The second has 25 minutes after bedtime, standing up in a hallway with the amp switched off so the house stays quiet. Listen to the 2 recordings, and you will conclude something about talent. Look at the 2 calendars, and you'll conclude something about arithmetic. Most of us do the modern version of this several times before breakfast. You hold your ordinary Tuesday, the one with the broken washing machine and the 4 hours of meetings, against a stranger's edited 4 seconds, and from that comparison, you draw a conclusion about your own character. You are processing bad data confidently and filing the result under humility. Leon Festinger's social comparison theory identified the trigger. We measure ourselves against other people precisely when an objective standard is missing. So supply the standard. Your own previous 30 days, written down where you can see them. Compare this month to last month, and comparison has nothing left to do. It becomes a measurement you can read off a page. Now, everything in the first 6 refusals has taken place inside your head. The lawyer at 6:12, the verdict on Wednesday, the warm feeling at the dinner table. That is what most people mean by discipline, a better quality of inner life, a stronger version of you standing in the same room, arguing better. That's where I want to turn the whole thing over. Because the people who actually last do not have a stronger inner life than you. In many cases, they have a duller one. What they have is a rearranged outer one, and the 6 refusals left are mostly about furniture, paper, sleep, and boredom. If you were expecting the second half to get more heroic, it gets less. That's the good news. Number 7. A disciplined mind refuses to be in the room with the thing. There is no fight because it never gets close enough to need one. The phone charges in the kitchen. It is 4 meters from the bed to the kitchen counter, and those 4 meters are the entire difference between the man who reads 20 minutes before sleep and the man who surfaces at 1:15 a.m. with a hot face and no memory of the last 40 minutes. Same man, same willpower. 4 meters. A drier version of the same idea. Someone 14 years sober is asked how he resists it, and he says he doesn't resist anything. There's no whiskey in his house, and he doesn't go on to the second bar. Note where the real decision lives in that sentence. Not at the second drink, at the first look at the second bar. By the time you're weighing it up, you're negotiating with someone who has already decided. Angela Duckworth, Tamar Gendler, and James Gross set this out in 2016 as situational self-control. Changing the situation is more effective and far cheaper than effortful inhibition in the moment. Wendy Wood's habit research points the same way. Behavior is driven much more by stable context cues than by intention. Even the children in Walter Mischel's delay experiments who managed to wait did it by looking away, covering the treat, singing to themselves. They were attention strategies worked out on the spot by 6-year-olds. Nobody in that room was strong. The ones who lasted were the ones who stopped looking at it. Number 8. A disciplined mind refuses to keep the plan in its head. 9 open tabs but in your head. The email you owe your accountant, the doctor you meant to call in April,
The thing you promised your sister in March and have thought about roughly once a week since. Not one of them is difficult. All of them are loud. You sit down to do the one piece of work that matters, and you pay rent all afternoon to 9 unfinished sentences. The fix is boring, which is why you've never done it properly. Before you shut the laptop, tomorrow's 3 commitments get written on paper with a time attached to each one, and the tabs close. Borrow the kitchen's word for this, mise en place.
The reason a professional line looks calm at 7 in the evening is that most of the actual cooking happened before the heat arrived. The Zeigarnik effect describes how unfinished tasks stay active in memory, pulling at you. Massacampo and Baumeister showed in 2011 that simply making a specific plan for an unfinished goal reduced intrusive thoughts about it. The task didn't get done. The mind let go anyway. It doesn't want the thing finished. It wants to know when. So the room is arranged and the page is written. And there's one question I've been walking past for 20 minutes. What happens on the first night it doesn't work? Because it won't work. Some Thursday you'll fall asleep on the sofa with the page still on the table. That night is where the other 11 refusals either survive or quietly die. And it's the one I promised you at the start. Number 9. A disciplined mind refuses to start over. 41 days of practice. Then one night she falls asleep on the sofa at 9:30 with the television still on. And in the morning the app has reset to 0. A gray 0 where the number used to be. And she resets with it, deciding the person starts from scratch too. She tells herself she's back to square one. Look at what actually happened. 41 evenings of fingers on strings are still in her hands. The calluses are still on her fingertips.
A number died and nothing else did. Nobody has ever actually been back to square one. The phrase describes an accounting error and nothing else. Then there's the cruder version, which you'll recognize instantly. 1 cigarette, therefore the day is ruined, therefore finish the pack. 1 missed workout, therefore the week is a write-off, therefore Monday. 1 bad meal, so the diet restarts in the morning, and the morning is 9 hours away, so those 9 hours are free. The second miss is never caused by the first miss. It's caused by the story about the first miss. So state the rule as a number, because numbers don't argue. Miss once is an accident. Miss twice is a decision. This is the abstinence violation effect from Marlott and Gordon's work on relapse prevention. The collapse after a lapse is driven by how the lapse gets interpreted rather than by the lapse itself. Janet Polivy and Peter Herman documented the same disinhibition in dieters who merely believed they had already broken the rule. The belief did the damage. The rule was still intact. Number 10. A disciplined mind refuses to earn rest. Rest is equipment. You know the man who is proud of 5 hours sleep. He mentions it the way other people mention a marathon time.
Ask him how he's doing and he'll say fine, and he'll mean it. And that's precisely the problem, because the instrument he'd used to detect the loss is the thing that's broken. Van Dongen and colleagues restricted people's sleep for 2 weeks in 2003 and found that objective performance kept degrading day after day, while the participants' own sense of sleepiness leveled off after a few days. The decline continued. The gauge stopped moving. You do not feel the debt accumulate. You feel roughly the same while getting steadily worse, which is why the bill is never presented until much later. Seneca made the same argument for the mind in On Tranquility of Mind. It has to be given genuine relaxation, because a mind held at full tension does not get sharper, it gets less reliable. The last 2 refusals are the quietest of the 12. They're also the only reason any of this survives past the first year. Number 11. A disciplined mind refuses to spend itself on what isn't up to it. Gate 14, flight delayed 4 hours. 2 people are waiting it out. One man has been at the desk for most of 2 hours now, explaining with increasing precision why this is unacceptable,
And he is right. Right about the airline, right about the compensation, right about the tone the second agent took with him. 6 meters away, a woman has her laptop open on her knees and is working. Same delay.
Same arrival time. One of them will arrive at the hotel with something left. Closer to home, the manager who spends every Sunday evening relitigating a decision that was made in a room he wasn't invited to. 9 months of Sunday evenings. He has been renting that room by the week for most of a year, and he doesn't own it, and he never did. This is the opening move of Epictetus's Enchiridion, and it's the first move for a reason. Some things are up to us, meaning judgment, intention, and response, and some are not, meaning bodies, reputation, and other people's choices. Freedom, in his account, is the discipline of spending only in the first column. The modern corroboration is Susan Nolan Hoeksma's research on rumination as a predictor of depression. Replaying what you cannot change bills you every Sunday for a service it never delivers. Number 12. A disciplined mind refuses to be interesting. A baker who has made the same loaf 4,000 times will tell you seriously and without embarrassment that number 4,000 taught him something about the water. Nothing in his day is interesting. He is in it for the same room, the same 40 minutes of proving. His bread is exceptional. And then the trap, which I'll be blunt about because you might be living inside it. The person who redesigns the system every 3 weeks.
There is a new app and a new notebook, the good kind with the elastic band, color-coded and beautifully architected on a Sunday afternoon with a coffee going cold beside it. That person will tell you they're disciplined, and what they're actually doing is chasing the feeling of beginning, which is the most enjoyable part of any project and the only part that produces nothing at all. It's novelty wearing discipline's coat, and it convinces people because it involves real effort and real thought, and a genuinely improved spreadsheet. Anders Ericsson's research on deliberate practice describes it as repetitive, effortful, and largely not enjoyable. The absence of glamour is a structural feature of anything that compounds. And habit formation, in Wendy Wood and David Neal's account, depends on repetition inside a stable context. Stable is the word that matters, and it is the one every redesign destroys. How long any of it takes varies enormously from person to person and from habit to habit, so don't go looking for a magic number of days. Go looking for the boring version you could actually repeat for a year. Before the list closes, one thing about the words you use, because you'll need it in about 4 minutes. 2 men outside a wedding, both ex-smokers. The first says, "I'm trying to quit," which is an announcement that negotiations are open, and someone will helpfully offer him one within the hour, not out of malice, but because he told them there was a door. The second says, "I don't smoke," which is a description of the world, and the conversation moves on to something else. Darrell Bem's self-perception theory explains why this isn't just semantics. We infer who we are from what we observe ourselves repeatedly doing and saying. Language that states a fact recruits identity. Language that states an attempt recruits debate. And the Stoics had a companion practice for it, premeditatio malorum, which Seneca used deliberately, rehearsing the setback before it arrived, so that when it did arrive, it turned up already familiar, wearing a face he'd seen before. So that's the 12, and if you're waiting for me to tell you which one to start with, the honest answer is that it doesn't much matter, because underneath all 12, there's only one skill. Every single item on that list is the same movement performed in a different room, a pause between the impression and the assent, with a pre-written answer sitting in it. That's the payoff I promised you at the start. Not 12 habits, one pause 12 times. And you don't install it by wanting it.
You install it by rehearsing the exact moment it will be tested, which takes an index card and about 4 minutes. 3 sentences on the card, each one beginning with, "I don't," not "I'm trying not to." You already heard the difference outside that wedding, and the difference is the whole install. Then the second half, which is the half everyone skips. Name the failure point in advance and write it as a full sentence with coordinates in it. Not less phone at night. Instead, when it is 9:40 in the evening and I am tired and the phone is within reach of my hand, I don't open it. I put it on the kitchen counter and read 4 pages. The hour, the room, the voice you'll hear, and the answer you've already written. 1 refusal for 7 days, on paper where you can see it. Which brings me to the 13th, the one I said I'd give you at the end. A disciplined mind refuses to be impressed by itself. There is no arrival. There's no morning where you wake up and feel finally, securely disciplined. And if you're honest, that feeling is what you've been shopping for this whole time, through the books, the systems, the streak that died on day 11. It doesn't come. Waiting for it is one more negotiation, held at the worst possible hour, with the most persuasive lawyer you've ever met. What comes instead is smaller and much better.
Some ordinary Tuesday. Nothing special about it. You'll notice that a thing you used to fight every single day simply isn't in the room anymore. No ceremony. You won't be able to point at the moment it left. You didn't defeat it. You stopped letting it in for long enough that it stopped coming to the door. And you will never once watch yourself being disciplined. It'll be exactly like watching that person whose kitchen you stood in, made entirely of things that didn't happen, invisible from the inside, unremarkable from the outside, and load-bearing for everything you build on top of it. The alarm you didn't argue with, the message you didn't send, the system you didn't redesign, because the old boring one was still working. That's the whole thing. 12 closed doors and a quiet Tuesday. So before you get up, do one small thing for me. Pick the single refusal from tonight that made you uncomfortable. You already know which one it was. And say it out loud, once, as a fact, the way you'd say your own address. Then go and move the phone or write the card and tell nobody. That's what we do here. One refusal at a time, without an audience. If you want the next one, stay close. Subscribe, and I'll meet you here. For now, just sit with it a moment longer. That's enough.